So it's so funny. When I was at the fireworks last night with a gazillion people, I was having recollection of a Michael Jackson concert that I'd been to at Dodger Stadium, and I had to wait for everyone to leave in order to find my car. So fortunately, we got to take the bus with some friends, and it was so swift and it was so easy. So to just remember that, God's driving the bus. Yeah, and that we're partnered with the divine, absolutely. And that we don't have to just go it alone and then be very patient to wait for that, to wait for everything to happen. So instead, we can engage with that. And in partnering with the divine, and there I was at the Pueblo Harvest Cafe. So I've been dancing. We've been enjoying just that exuberant energy and that luminosity that's in the sky and in our hearts. Just incredible colors. And so to have all those colors come through and become true for us. Ooh, come through and become true. I love that. So I learned a new word. You're going to ask me how to pronounce it, right? Yeah, eleutheromania, and it came from Instagram, so who really knows where it came from? A different generation. It means an intense and irresistible desire for freedom. And so there I was, I had freedom because God was driving the bus. And we could laugh, and actually I was at the back of the bus, and there was this group of a gaggle of geese. There was this group of girls who were just laughing and having a great time, and they're like my role models. So it's great to go on a bus and discover some role models. And so today we're asked to demonstrate the greatness of now, the great place from where we spring from, and to know that we're empowered by that sense of peace and freedom and empowerment, and that we can fully express the wonderful gifts and the talents that we have. So I know that we're well supported in that. And so my affirmation is, today I accept responsibility for the freedom of realizing my dreams. And if we look at that dream time, if we look at maybe we have some drive time that becomes dream time, and we know that those dreams are fulfilled already, that it's already in store, we can, in essence, hold these truths to be self-evident. Sound familiar? We can declare our own freedom today, that we have that sense of equality, that all are created equal, and that we're endowed by a creator. Because we are creative, aren't we? Whew, sometimes a little bit too creative in our lives, right? Sometimes I get a little too creative. But we're endowed by the creator with certain unalienable rights that are among these are life, liberty, and I think the discovery of happiness. So happiness and prosperity comes when we pursue the activities that enrich our spirit, that enhance our world. And we have the power. Yeah. Good morning. Welcome, Liz. We have the power already to just break out and have a good time and come from that overflowing place, much like the fireworks. So we can do ordinary things in an extraordinary way. So for everything, there is a season. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every purpose." I would say as heaven, as we're living in this place that's in Paradise Hills, on Paradise Boulevard, and as we bring that paradise into our daily lives. So there's seasons. And so, yes, we celebrate freedom. We celebrate being healthy and being in a loving presence that's generous and kind and thoughtful and overflowing with so much good. And to acknowledge that and knowing that our lives, whether it's our individual life, whether it's the celebration of being together in community, that we're empowered, absolutely empowered. So I ask my question oftentimes when there's some sort of a challenge, whether it's a challenge if it's health, if it's wealth, if it's a challenge in relationships, or if it's a challenge in myself getting back to that inner wisdom, the knowingness of the freedom that's within here, that inner freedom that can be unleashed at any time. I ask myself when I'm in a situation, I say, what purpose does this serve? As I think about my response, I think. And then I perhaps walk. And then I talk. I speak the truth of what that is. So as I think about, well, what purpose does that serve? Is it something that's empowering for these seasons that are in our life? And so there's natural rhythms that we can tap into. There's the natural rhythm and harmony that's already in alignment. We can tap into that and tune into who we are. And it's much like day and it's much like night. We can count on that there's going to be day and that there's going to be night. And so we have that cycle. We can count on that. I hear in Albuquerque right here is if you don't like the weather, just wait an hour and it's going to change, right? Anyone had that experience? Yeah? Something, 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes and the weather's going to change. This is true. So internally we have these cycles that show up as our biology. It shows up in our body. And it shows up in our spirit, in our mind, and in our body. And so that these clocks, they control whatever it's our daily hormone levels, they control our body cycles, they control the speed or our metabolism. And so it's these seasons of our lives that we have an internal life. We have an internal clock. And so there's other internal clocks that are reflected, whether it's our emotional state, whether it's our mental state, whether it's the physical energies as well as the subtle ones that reside within all of us, and we can pay attention to those. It could be that we have that show up in our child development. We know our kids develop. They're always growing. We know that we have cycles as spiritually maturing. We have the people growing from adolescence throughout to menopause. We have all these cycles that are just natural in the natural rhythm. And there's much to be aware within ourselves. And that's the key, is to be aware, because that sets us free. And it moves through us as ingenuity, as compassion, as appreciation of the beauty that resides within us, as appreciation of our self-awareness and our spiritual awareness. So there's much to be aware of within ourselves. And so it's time to just check in on that, check in on our senses, listen to what is happening as far as our changes. And if we resist change, we want to keep the energy flowing. We don't want to be stuck. We don't want to be blocked. We want to have that energy flow, much like the fireworks, much like not being able to find our car in the huge stadium. And as we have that energy flowing and it's from inside out, how else do we truly experience the life flow that's within us? All right. And we really can't stop nature. We can't stop nature. It's just natural unfoldment, the divine nature that's within us. So spirit is ever evolving. So we get to, in essence, have God in the driver's seat, and we get to partner with the divine, knowing that it is within us, it guides us, we listen to the divine intelligence, the love intelligence that's there. And I know that there's that intelligence that's nature. It's just so natural. The place I walk up in the bosque had some non-indigenous or non-natural plants. And so there was this huge project to excavate those non-natural plants. Some folks are nodding their heads. It was quite the ordeal. And even the beach, the beach even became redesigned so that it could have inlets of nourishment to the new plants. So they had uprooted some of those plants that were not indigenous and then planted some of those natural plants, and so that they could grow and be nourished and thrive. And so there were new river channels that were carved, and there's new opportunity to nourish growth and to have it be more of a natural place that's cleansed and pure and providing for itself in the natural rhythm and the natural cycle of life. So it's much like these seasons. It got to have a refreshment of a new season. And much like all of the seasons in our lives have different characteristics, whether it's spring, summer, fall, winter, we notice that the changing seasons remind us of the cyclical nature of life. And what helps us to stay healthy and balanced, whether we're healthy in our individual lives, whether we're healthy in an organization and viable, and knowing that there's that prosperizing good and the generosity of flow, that it's not stuck or that it's not blocked, and that we take that, for instance, into our relationship. We take that energy and the life force into our workplace. we have that healthy place which follows. And I want to use Ayurvedic medicine as an example of this. What it does is it helps our natural rhythms to be even more whole, to be even more fully expressed, and for that innate energy to be unleashed, because it's there. And so there's an Eastern approach, and it's a philosophy of health. In fact, it translates as a science of health. So if we look at our lives as being healthy with our peace of mind, healthy with our bodies, we know that we can remain healthy no matter what those changes are. So whether there's a change in temperature and we wait 5 minutes for the weather to change, or an hour, there's a specific season in our lives that produces specific results. And so understanding the qualities of those seasons is helpful. Would you say that if we understand those seasons of our life? So there's a good way to keep our bodies healthy and to listen to what a chiropractor, and a practitioner. I start to say practitioner because we're all practitioners of the science of mind, which is a guide for spiritual living. A chiropractor told me years ago to check out this book called Fit for Life, and it's by Harvey Diamond, and Marilyn is his wife's name. I almost forgot his wife. But it's called Fit for Life, and it's natural hygiene, and it works with the rhythms of our body, where we assimilate, and then we absorb, and then we eliminate. We eliminate what doesn't work for us, and our bodies have these natural cycles. So we absorb. Oftentimes we absorb information. Would you say in our information age, we absorb information, and we may want to assimilate some of it, and then we may want to eliminate some of it too that doesn't serve us. So that as I look at that question of what purpose does this serve, I can look at that incoming information and say, wow, what purpose does this serve? I can focus on wholeness, the wholeness of the seasons. I can know that depending on whatever the climate or the activity that I'm involved in, there are seasons in my life. And so we're all in transition as far as what these natural energies are, and to have a sense of allowing and to know that we don't need to go to whatever extremes, but much like Ayurvedic medicine, we can use the naturalness, the divine nature, partner with the divine, and know that we have natural cycles. So we know that crops in the fall produce, and not even, I was up with a big strainer up on a ladder gathering some fresh apricots. And there's a tree house, so fortunately I could climb the ladder and land on this tree house. And I would just hold up the basket, and if the apricot was ripe and sweet, just like candy, it would naturally just fall. And then it'd be ready. I'd be ready to just take it in and then share it. But it was, that readiness, knowing that there's that sweet nourishment already in store. And what I know is that springtime here, sometimes there's an increase in rain, there's an increase in wind, and we may have an increase in rain in our lives. We may have an increase in wind. And so maybe that's a time to balance whatever those organs in our bodies are. Ayurvedic medicine would say, eat your dark leafy greens, and I do feel virtuous if I eat a vegetable. And pretty much throughout the whole thing it said, eat your dark leafy greens, And so summer, too, it's a time of hot and sunny days, and so there could be a better tendency for us to have high water content food and to have that nourishment and that whole food type of aspect, because that's in the flow of our natural cycle. So yeah, we may need some more hydration. People are giggling because they thank you for sitting alongside me on this, because I really prefer dark chocolate. I usually have dark... The dark... It's a vegetable, right? Yeah, so for summertime, fresh vegetables, and then the antioxidants, I suppose, of dark chocolate. And then fall, it's a time of cooling temperatures, so it begins to cool. We cool off. And we get to balance whatever that is. Maybe there's some high fiber types of food that's going to be better for us in cleansing and moving, and to not be stuck or to not be blocked, and to just know that we're assimilating that. And we can look at this in terms of information. There may be some magazines or some websites out there that we may not want to assimilate and absorb. We can choose that peaceful place. So learning to flow with that is pretty amazing. So just to be aware of that. Winter is a time of dampness and coolness, and it says we should have tonic, like tonic cleansing sorts of ginger or sprouts, more vegetables. And we can learn to flow with the changes of the seasons by making these healthy choices that keep us strong and vibrant and filled with that life force, much like the vibrancy of the fireworks last night. So we can celebrate the seasons, knowing that there's the energy, there's the feelings, there's the motive. There's the motive, if we look at those cycles in our life, to know that we're in movement, we're in this transitory space, and that it's essential. It's an essential part of our learning and growing, and from this spiritual place of life and liberty and happiness, we can know that we are having that variety, even if it appears to be a time of loss, and that we move into a time of loss into awakening. So we have those cycles of the seasons where we move from this time of, I get goosebumps, from the time of loss into awakening of our magnificent place. So there's a cycle, and it could look like birth, it could look like death, it could look like renewal, it could look like a cyclical time in our life. And so, much like spring, which might represent the youth, and we're going to have a blessing for our youth to end our service today and send them off to teen camp, and our blessings go with them, and they want to extend their gratitude. Just staying tuned for that. Thank you, Kamatara. We have the youthfulness of spring. So that's a season of reawakening, and it's a season of rebirth, and it's a season of joy. And summer, we might see as the prime of life. You know, we're out and doing our activities and riding the bus, and knowing that God's driving the bus. And it's a season of warmth and happiness and prosperity and abundance of love, an abundance of good, an abundance of joy, an abundance of generosity, an abundance of that compassion and empathy that we have, and compassion for ourselves. And then we move into autumn, which is oftentimes transforming. It may be like holding that strainer up for the deliciousness of the harvest. And there's an abundance, and there's also a change in color. So we have these colors of our lives, and to let them move through so that there's nothing that just is stagnant, but there's flexibility, and there's that which moves forward within us. And then there's wintertime, which may appear to be like spiritual maturity. It may appear to be like gray hair in or I'm going blonde type of, there's that maturity. It's oftentimes a time for reflection. And it's a time for stillness. It's a time for that dream time of that spiritual maturity. So the seasons are nature's way of being our teacher. And it's all around us. And nature does her dance at the Pueblo Harvest Cafe, and she does the dance. And so in connecting with the changes of seasons, we're reminded that this is a metaphor for our lives, that we have the change in season that we're invested in. We're invested in something in our lives. We're invested in our health. We're invested in our well-being. We're invested in paying attention to making those healthy choices. And so we can adapt. We can flow. We can absolutely know that there's the place where change is the truth of the universe, and that we can accommodate change. We know that there's the transformation. And as ancient Chinese wisdom says, there's nothing permanent except change. And so things are going to come in cycles and waves. And so much like when I used to body surf, and that was just like so much fun, and there were porpoise who were kind of joining me, and I know that ocean is connected to the wave, that there was that connection and that flow that met the shore. Wu Min talked about 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, and that's that elimination. If your mind is unclouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. This is it. This right now and here is the best season of our lives. And we had a community conversation last Sunday with some beautiful people, and there was beauty and love and kindness and joy and laughter that showed up. And we got to think about those spiritual qualities. And then we got to walk and be with one another. And we got to talk and to share what the truths are about ourselves and what resonates in ourselves in others. And so what I know is that this is a place where we can thrive and know that there's the viability that's in our hearts that we share, and it's vibrant and filled with that life essence and that love essence that's in each and every of these cycles. And that we have this irresistible desire for freedom. Eleutheromania. An irresistible desire for freedom. And even our book of the month talks about calming our anxious mind. And it gives us methods and tools and places where we can have more levity with ourselves. And know that really Spirit is driving the bus. We get to co-pilot, we get to navigate, we get to listen to the divine intelligence and the divine wisdom that is within. And we get to learn about the mechanism through which maybe anxiety may show up. It may show up as our body's fear system. It may show up as a tool of mindfulness, wherein we can use a tool and be more mindful and aware as we think, as we walk, and as we talk. Knowing that everything that we think, say, and do is empowered and backed by that truth and the universal principles of the universe. That we can call in the discernment that we know. Call it in. And we can walk and talk with clarity. And I went to a retreat one time, and they talked about don't do something, just sit there, right? Don't do something, just sit there and calm the mind so that then it can become even more clear. And we can call in that discernment and make the highest and best choices, where we can walk and talk with clarity as a result of our thoughts. And then the second half of the retreat was, don't just sit there, do something, right? So that we think and we walk and then we talk. So there's a Tibetan Buddhist nun, Pema Chodron, and I'm on her weekly. She contacts me weekly on her e-blast. I want to go visit her. I have a friend up in Nova Scotia that I would love. She'll actually be here in December. Not Pema Chodron, but my friend from Nova Scotia who lived. I know. But she does have online stuff that we can tune into. And so she talks about our practices, our spiritual practices. And so she talks about our meditation practice. It's not about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. We don't need to become something better. It's about befriending who we really are. We get to befriend, be our own best friend, and to think, and to walk, and to be that talk as far as spirit and with clarity. And so let's just have an experience of that in this very now moment, And let's experience this in order to think and walk and talk with even more clarity. So first, just come into the present, and if you want to just have your feet on the floor, and to know this is a tool that you can take out the door, to first come into the present, and just close your eyes if you'd like to. We're going to have just a minute, a moment of stillness. And just flash on what's happening within you right now. Just noticing and being aware and allowing. Being fully aware of your body, its energetic quality. And be aware of your thoughts. Be aware of your feelings. To just raise up and buoy up those feelings, to say appreciation, to allow and accept, and knowing that there is the embodiment of that which is in our heart. Next, I'd like you to feel your heart, and you can literally place a hand on your heart if you find that helpful. And knowing that this can anchor at any time, and just feel, what is my purpose? What is my purpose in being this? What is my purpose? What purpose do I serve? And it's a way, as you place your hand on your heart, it's a way of accepting yourself just as you are in this moment. Befriending yourself just in this moment. And allowing the thoughts, allowing the walking, the movement of spirit, the partnering with the divine to align. So accepting ourselves as we are in this moment and having a way of saying, this is my experience right now. It's okay. This is my experience right now. It's okay. This is my experience now. It's okay. And then go into the next moment without any agenda. And when you're ready, open your eyes, knowing that there is that clear quality of thought, clear quality of feelings and emotions expressed, knowing that, yes, I know what purpose this serves, that my heart is smiling. And I invite us to leave here today, even before we get to the parking lot, to not complain, to not talk about anyone else, to just be with ourselves and say, I am here, and it's okay. And so we can tap into our heart and share from that place as we think and walk and talk, and knowing that we're on our way right here and right now. So I invite us to just turn in for a moment of inner celebration and to know that we're on our way and that it is a pathway that is absolutely blessed and it is filled with the infinite life and the divine intelligence that is the spark, that is that which sparkles within our heart. And it is filled and overflowing and outpouring and outpicturing in so many beautiful and artistic ways that the infinite shows up as love, as the generous space of harmony and rhythm in the natural seasons of life. And I know that I am connected in the wholeness of this life, in the beloved oneness, in the loving kindness, in this connection at all times. And it fills my heart, and it touches and inspires and moves from this place of partnering with the divine. It is the divine life which is in the flow and in the know of who I truly am, and I am absolutely befriended as an expression that is so creative. I am befriended as this beautiful expression of spirit. And it shows up so beautifully and wonderfully as me. For this I am grateful. I am grateful in the fullness of appreciation and knowing that it is spirit that is the divine thoughts. It is spirit that are the divine walks. It is the divine next steps that are happening right here and now in all that we think and say and just know from the depths of our hearts. And I'm grateful for the beautiful ways that it shows up and manifests our magnificence. And so I release this word knowing in full surrender that there is the letting go and letting be of that which truly sets us free. And so be it, and so it is.